Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my podcast. I'm Benita Hudson, and I want to talk to you about health today from a different perspective. I think that the health industry can be very damaging to our health, and I'll explain why. We see all those videos of people who are looking young and strong and healthy, and they're eating right, and they're exercising right, and it can really leave a person demoralized, feeling like, well, I don't look that young, and I'm not that healthy. And we might set about entering into a program because we want to get like that. Nothing wrong with that. I've done programs. I've found them to be useful. But I think it has to do with how we approach it. So for example, if your approach is that of, I'm going to feel bad eating the wrong things, the worst thing we can put in our bodies is guilt or self-blame or shame. So whatever you do, however you go about addressing things going on with your body, do it with love and appreciation. I mean, this vehicle that carries us through life, these billions of cells all operating in relative communion with each other, gets us up in the morning, gets us out the door, gets us doing the things we need to do, and for the most part does it pretty successfully despite all the ways we abuse our bodies, whether it's from overworking or overeating or whatever it is we're doing or not sleeping enough. So I think we need to stop and first of all thank our bodies for the miracle they accomplish every day. I don't know anything else going on in the world that works in concert as beautifully as nature does. And our bodies are such a brilliant example of that. I see it as this: we come to the earth plane to have certain experiences as spiritual beings, and our body is the vehicle through which we have those experiences. And if we come into this world with difficulties, it may be that that's something that's a reflection of whatever we chose to work on in this lifetime. If we encounter them as we get older, maybe there's a genetic factor. We're predisposed to certain conditions, or we get sick in certain ways. There's always something valuable to be learned from that. In a lot of ways, and I've mentioned this before, the body is a metaphor. We'll get a condition that will reflect something going on with us that we're not seeing, and so our bodies will demonstrate it to us. I've mentioned before with my sarcoidosis, I literally had a wall around my heart. I was growing these little growths called granulomas in the lymph nodes around my heart. That's a pretty obvious metaphor. So I did everything the doctors told me to do. I'm not advocating for not listening to your doctor. If you've got a condition, please go to your doctor and follow through with whatever they ask of you. But I'm talking about something complementary, something that will work with whatever else you're doing. What is your body trying to communicate to you if you're ill or injured? What's it trying to tell you? Work with that. Pay attention to that. And if you don't know what it is, here I am, psychic coach. I work worldwide. Be more than happy to tune in on your subconscious patterns manifesting as illness and help you understand not only what they are, but how to work with them instead of fighting them. But what I want to talk about today and really emphasize this is gratitude and appreciation for our bodies and learning to lovingly work with them. So instead of saying, I'm going to do this program that's going to feel punishing and hard for me, I'm going to force myself to eat the right foods and I'm going to beat myself up if I'm not following through on what I said I was going to do, that's just a recipe for self-hatred. And you might temporarily accomplish what you wanted to do, but I don't think you're giving your body the right message. How often do we say, I will love myself when I can get into those size 6 jeans, I can do this, I can look like that. And if you're not able to get there for whatever reason, you're just harder on yourself. What I think that does is it pushes down inside of us the subconscious patterns that are trying to get our attention so we can work with them, help them to become conscious, and have more energy and more awareness as a result, and more self-love. So if we're saying, I'm going to get in this condition no matter what, we might be working against some pattern inside of us that needs to do this work a different way. If you're hanging on to some weight, is there some unprocessed childhood emotion that is showing up that way, that losing weight is only going to make it go underground and come out in some other way? So I'm not saying don't do the things that make you healthy. I'm saying examine why you're doing them. What is the attitude around it? If it's something that feels like a really gentle, loving thing to do for yourself, go for it. But if there's any negative approach to it, any sense of, I can't accept myself this way, I have to do something about this, and there's self-punishment involved, I think ultimately that's an unkindness to the parts of you that get dragged along into that intention without having had a choice, without having had a chance to speak up and say, I'm trying to tell you something through the way your body is right now. What would happen if instead we got curious and asked internally, what's keeping me from losing the weight? What is happening inside of me that is the reason why the weight is there in the first place? Because a lot of times we can exercise, we can do all the right things, and we still retain weight or fatigue or whatever the condition is that we have. And we don't stop to turn inward and ask, is it okay for me to go on this program? Is all of me in agreement with that? Checking in and asking internally what those parts of you need for your body to come into a state of equilibrium. So if you say, yeah, I'm going to do this exercise program, asking internally, is all of me in agreement with that? And if you feel some inner tension, asking what that's about. Become open and curious to what's happening inside of you. Create some space for these parts of you to come up and communicate with you. And if you're feeling inner resistance to doing something that looks like it would be good for your body, you might ask, okay, if that's not something you can agree to, what can you agree to? What are you open to? You might make suggestions, see if that feels like you're opening to that. So for example, instead of going, I'm going to get up every morning and I'm going to be in the gym 5 days a week lifting weights, I'm going to make this happen. And maybe you do it the first 2 mornings, and by the third, your mind is inventing excuses. You probably put too much on yourself too soon. It might be that parts of you will agree to going for a 30-minute walk 2 mornings a week. So you start there. And as that continues to feel good and balanced and right for your body, you check in. Is everybody in agreement to adding an extra morning or going for a longer walk? You check in, you ask, because there isn't just your conscious mind. There are your unconscious patterns locked in place at the age the pattern was created. And if you haven't turned inward and tried to access those parts of yourself, you're operating without consensus. You might always get a part that wants to drag its feet and doesn't want to do anything. And there might be a point where you have to say, well, everybody else is in agreement, so sorry, you just don't have to participate if you don't want to. You don't have to lend your energy to this. But the more you start asking internally, what is the most loving thing? What is the kindest thing I can do for my body right now? What is all of me, for the most part, in agreement with doing? You're going to start getting answers. And hey, sometimes the 5-year-old in you wants an ice cream. Maybe it's important to that part of you. And if you can enjoy it and be present for that experience, not beat yourself up for having it, that's healing too. So that's my suggestion for this week. As often as you can, ask yourself, what in this moment is the kindest, gentlest thing I can do for my body? what is as much of me as is conscious right now in agreement with? Checking in. Does it feel like this morning it's time to go for that walk? Does it feel like there's something else I need to do? Checking in with yourself so that you're bringing more and more of you to the activities that you do. And it can be really interesting how these things can manifest. I remember waking up one morning, and I'm asthmatic and my lungs felt really tight. I didn't feel good, and I thought, oh God, here I go again. It might be months before I get my lungs back. And then I stopped myself and I asked internally, is there something else going on here? Is this coming up for some reason? And I got the message that my body needed a rest. So I stayed in bed for a couple more hours and read a book, and after 2 hours, my lungs were fine. Remember that we live in a quantum universe. Everything around us is a manifestation of consciousness. It's an illusion. That includes our bodies. So when we shift internally, our bodies shift to match. If you really want to get healthier, don't just go for the external, I'll eat right, I'll sleep better, I'll exercise more. Do the internal shift. What is my inner self saying it needs for me to feel healthy, balanced, and whole? It's going to probably be a slower, gentler approach than you might see advocated in some of these programs. And maybe slower and gentler, really listening into yourself, is what you really need. And naturally, it will follow that those aspects of you that are starting to feel heard and cared for will want to participate in something that feels good. So start with what feels good. Start with what you feel there's an opening to do. Is there energy for this? Is there some anticipatory joy in doing this? That's the carrot you want to dangle in front of yourself. Those things that feel like they'll feel good. And just give yourself a little bit. And as you do more of that, there will be a desire for more. Then add a little more on. Be gentle, be caring for yourself. And you'll see those shifts occur. And all the pain and the shame and the trauma and the anger that we store inside ourselves, if we can make space to allow that up and say, welcome, I'm here for you. What do you need? What do you need for you to be heard, for you to heal? Those parts will start voicing those needs. And you'll be surprised how many of them will actually be healthy choices. At first, maybe not so much. Maybe the 5-year-old really needs ice cream. But then there will be a point where the 5-year-old will want to go and run and play. And that's always a good thing. So take some time this week to really listen in, really check in. What is the most loving, kindest thing I can do for myself right now? And is there any resistance internally to that? And if there is, what is the resistance about? Ask. That part might have a need that you never knew was there because you never knew to ask. Thanks very much, everybody. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.